So in this demonstration, I want to just walk through um, how to set up an application using AWS Amplify. Um, give you a description of what AWS Amplify is and the uh, the commands, the primary commands needed just to set up an application, uh, from the configuration of the application to setting up a back end, a front end and a back end for the application for your use. This is just a high level overview. So let's just kind of get started. Uh, so, what is AWS Amplify? Amplify is a development platform that simplifies the process of building cloud enabled applications for web and mobile platforms. So, it's a really good platform, a framework that allows you to deploy applications that are maybe built with React or other frameworks. I like React, uh, and we're gonna get into more detail as we go through this brief. Uh, it is just a brief demo. Okay, so the commands that we're going to be looking at first. We're going to start with the npm install the AWS Amplify CLI utility. So let's just kind of get started with that. So here's a description. It installs the Amplify CLI globally on your machine. It's a prerequisite for using the Amplify CLI. So I've already done this. So we're still just going to go just through the motions to show you what it looks like on your. All right. So the next thing we want to do is Amplify configure. So Amplify configure configures the Amplify CLI with your AWS account credentials. It prompts you to create a new IAM user, which has the credentials. So those credentials are going to be a AWS access key and AWS secret key. And what those allow you to do is allow this Amplify. Uh, it creates an Amplify user, which will have the ability to access AWS resources on your account, particularly those related to um, API gateway or Amplify itself, the framework itself. So we're also going to get into that as well. So let's just actually see what that looks like. So when you launch that command, it will open up the AWS console for you, um, and it's just gonna take us to IAM. So press enter, and it's gonna give us a menu of the regions that we want to have the user in, and it gives us access to the vendor documentation as well. And it really prompts you to walk through this process of creating a user and the default region that you expect to be operating in. So it's very similar to just the AWS configure, just for general AWS users also. So it really just prompts us to create this create a user. So basically, it has us go to IAM and just create a user with these policies. So let's just go ahead and do that real quick. So username, let's just call it amp. We don't want to provide it access to the user console. We can attach these policies directly. Now in the documentation here, it tells us we want to get the administrator access for Amplify. So let's just go ahead and do that. Administrator access for Amplify. There we go. Let's make sure we don't have anything else. I'm also, going into the documentation, just because that's exactly what is provided for us when we actually go through AWS Configure. It wants us to complete these steps. We need to complete these steps in order to get the credentials required to work with the AWS services. Okay, so we have our permission set. We created our username, and now we're just going to be getting the access keys. So this crib, we just call it AMP, just really quickly. All right, so that's going to be our user. So in this user, we also need to create our security credentials. Now, of course, I'm going to be deleting these access keys after this video is done, but that's going to be what we're going to get into right now. We're just going to be creating the access keys for that user so we can configure them inside of the CLI utility here in a moment. So create access keys. So we have the access key and we have the secret access key. Okay. So again, this user will not be available once this video is posted, but I just want everyone to see exactly what values we're using to create um, the how we're using to configure the user to use the CLI utility. Okay, so once we configure those here, now we just go back to the CLI. Okay, so it's going to ask us to get that access key ID. So the access key ID, that's this guy right here, is this access key. So we want to do that. So we copy paste, and the secret access key here. Okay, we just call it default, no issues. Okay, so now we've already configured the AWS user. The AWS user that's associated with the Amplify CLI. So it's an admin, so it has the permissions to do everything that Amplify needs to do to deploy applications and so forth, which we're going to get further into now. Okay, so Amplify init, that's going to initialize a new Amplify project in the current directory. It's going to prompt us to select the framework we're using, vanilla JavaScript, React, or Angular. So that's what I'm selecting now. I've already created a React project under this directory, so I will be selecting React. Okay. Let's see here. So I've been working with this for a little bit. So it's saying I need to maybe delete this directory here. Rename and move the directory. Okay, so let me just, so yeah, I've been actually working with this for a little bit. Let me see, rename and move the amp. Let me see. Okay, so there's a directory called Amplify in there. Let me just remove this. Amplify 1. Just do what the instructions say right here. And let's try to run Amplify init again. Okay, there we go. So give us a name for the demo. So it normally just takes the name of the directory that we're under. So I'm just going to call it Amplify demo, and just use the default configurations here. So the default configurations, those are all good with me. It's just saying the environment is going to be dev. The name of the app, the app is Amplify demo. It's getting the editor. All this metadata, it's already able to detect. So I want to hit yes. I will go ahead and select the profile we just used. It should be default, right? So we just did that. Okay, so now it's going and then provisioning all of the resources needed to load this cloud application. So it's provisioning an S3 bucket and IAM roles. S3 bucket, it's because it's going to be using CloudFront to serve the static files that your application will be creating. So it just needs those standard AWS services to get that done. So you want to help improve AWS Amplify by sharing non-sensitive project information? No. You may want to choose yes in your opinion there. So, okay, so let's move on here. Now, so Amplify Add API. So I like this one because it gives us two things. It allows us to configure. So if you have let's say we just take a step back. If you have an application, you have a front end like React or whatnot. Typically, you would need to have some other service, some other server that maybe takes requests from the front end, and sends the request to a backend server for that backend server to just to do some processing, some additional business logic or application logic for it. So because this is a cloud native application, Amplify is going to be using a lot of like serverless services. So that's going to include, especially with um, this particular call here, it's gonna allow us to provision an API gateway resource and also a Lambda resource. So let's just kind of go through the motion and see what that looks like here. So, and I will configure all this here in a minute, but let's just go ahead and start here. So AWS Amplify Add API. Okay, so just provide a friendly name for the API. Let's say amp demo. Amp demo. Okay, path. I don't know. Let's just say data, or yeah, just data. So this is we're configuring the API gateway. And so for the API gateway, that's gonna require us to have an endpoint. So an endpoint is just a URL that's reachable over the web that allows us to access the server at a particular resource to provide us some information that the application provides us. So I don't know. In this case, I'm just gonna be very just generic and just call it data. So this is what I was referring to. So the API gateway on its own doesn't really serve too much of a purpose, but it allows us to proxy. It allows us to utilize another service that actually serves as a backend, which is AWS Lambda. AWS Lambda is a compute service, so it's basically allows us to have all the functionalities we would actually have in a server, um, but we only just need to define the logic required for those requests to be handled without the need of actually provisioning or dealing with a full blown server. I hope that makes sense. Um, Again, these are all serverless services we're dealing with here. So let's just call I'm gonna call the Lambda function app demo func. I prefer Python here. Node.js is fine, but well, it really just depends on your usage. So we can just go with Node.js. It really doesn't matter. I actually think, here's my take on it. I actually think there's some pluses and minuses there. When you start getting into um, some of the development. I think Node.js applications do have an advantage when you get into the Lambda, which we'll see in a moment, because you're actually able to edit the code. You're actually able to edit the code inside of the Lambda IDE with a Node.js application. And with Python, I just find that it's just not. Whenever you go through the motions of deploying an application, you're just not able to edit the code inside of the editor, and it just increases the development time, I think. So I'll just choose Node.js for now, um, and we'll just set this up. We'll just get a some stock code that'll just return us a hello world um whenever invoked. Now we don't want to configure advanced settings now. I'm going to be creating another more in-depth uh, like YouTube. We're actually set up a real application, but right now I'm just going through the motions of just getting all of the main, um, just the main commands, explaining what those are, so I can use them later on. I don't want the video to go too long. So do you want to configure? Okay, advanced settings? No, not right now. Do you want to edit the local lambda function now? Yeah, we can. We can just take a look and see where it's going to be. It gives us a path on where this is actually located. So again, so this is actually pulled down. So this, when we started this video, this directory was not here before, Amplify, but it is here now. So inside this directory, this is where we have that lambda function that it just spun up. So inside of there it is. So it's under this path right here. So I clicked it and it actually went here. So we actually want to uncomment this. Oops. Uncomment this. I'm sorry, uncomment this. Yeah, so those are going to be our headers. So I mean, this gets into cores. So cross-origin resource sharing, which is basically a browser security feature that prevents the exchange of data from domains, from dissimilar domains. So I mean, you can define which domains actually have access to these resources here. That's going to be a little bit further down the road, but I just wanted to just touch on it. All right, so again, what we've been doing was just we just added that API here. We've added that API service that also had a backend, a Lambda compute resource. That's what we're doing here. Okay, so I just want to hit enter because we have all that kind of bootstrapped. No, we don't want to restrict API access yet. Again, this is a very lightweight demo. You want to add another path? No. Okay. So what we are going to end up doing here. So let's just take a look here, and we can actually let's just make a small change. So we actually did make a small change. So we uncommented this um, this header key here. So let me make sure we're going in order here. We're just going to do amplify push. So what amplify push does is it will, any changes that you make inside of the amplify resources, this directory, this will push them up to the cloud. Okay, which is so. Let's go ahead and just try that right now. Let's take a look at it. Amplify push. So again, it deploys your Amplify project to the cloud. It creates the necessary AWS resources and configures them to the app. So one more thing here. Let's take a look here. So look, I meant to show this here. So it actually created a little kind of placeholder for us to manage the Amplify application inside of Amplify. So inside of the Amplify interface. So that's what it did here, while we were not looking. So let's go to Amplify push. Now, before I do that, let's just take a look here. Yeah, so it deployed. So we're gonna set up the hosting environment in a minute, but right now it's just focusing on the backend materials. So like here, Amplify push. Okay. So again, behind the hood, this is all using CloudFormation to deploy resources. So we should be seeing a lot of cloud formation statements here. So it's going to create these. It's going to create it's going to create this function. So far, these have all been local. Uh, the creation of these resources have all been local, and it's telling us right here this function is going to be created and this API is going to be created. And so, and also notice one more thing. It's AWS exports. So this AWS exports, this is going to be the sensitive, uh, all of the configurations required um, to configure this application, to configure the front end and the back end. They're ultimately going to be configured inside of AWS exports, and this is going to be updated almost in real time. And actually, this is going to keep it right here. Let's just take a look and see how that works. So we're going to continue. So it's building out all of these resources. We see the CloudFormation statements below. So it's creating that function, and it's going to give us a couple of things. Number one, for API Gateway, it's going to give us that endpoint that we can actually access to test out our function, which is going to be kind of cool. CloudFormation does take some time, sometimes it takes a moment to deploy. Okay, so it created all of the like this the default requirement, or just the requirements just for getting the basic um, backend up and running. The Lambda function policy and API gateway. We'll just hold this here. So the function is almost done. Okay. We can even go to CloudFormation and just kind of just take a look and see that one for one actions that are taking place. So it's what's the name of the stack? Let's call this what is the stack? In progress. Okay. Okay. Well, it's just finished then. All right. So okay, and when I came back, it actually updated the AWS exports, like I was saying. So it gave us this endpoint, which is the API gateway. So if I go ahead and hit this, it's gonna also it's also going to basically respond back with this hello from Lambda, which is the Lambda function that was just created on the back end. So last modified, so 2 minutes ago. So this Lambda function was just created, and it's the same Lambda function that's in my local here. And basically what I was saying was that what I find is that when I use Python for Lambda, and I go through this process, I'm not able to see the code here. I'm not able to see the code for Python. There's a message that's going to say it's due to the size, the size of the deployment package or whatnot. But I just find it to be an inconvenience. Um, I like the fact that like Node allows us to update um, the code here in the editor, and so that's a big plus for me. So I uncommented these headers, which by default are commented, and we can see those here. Now, if I were to go ahead and comment this back here, I'll just go ahead and do it again. We're going to see that change here too. So before I do that, let me just go ahead and I'll just do a little curl here. So I'll just do a little curl just to verify that everything is wired up correctly. So if I hit curl and I do this, oh, I forgot the endpoint. The endpoint is going to be, what do we call it? We called it, we had a path there. We gave it a path. So let's find the API that we built. In order to hit this endpoint, we have to also hit the path that we created here. So it's kind of early. I haven't had my coffee, so let me verify what that was again. So amplify config backend function. Let me just go to API gateway and find out what that was. So if I go to API gateway, if I go to API gateway, just it can't, again, because these resources were created. So this amp demo, and I call it data. Okay, so if I hit the if I curl this URL and I hit data, hello from Lambda. So this doesn't have any security associated with it. This Lambda function, but it will be. Again, this demo is just really just to get all of the standard commands you would actually need to get a application up and running. I'll do a more deeper dive a little later, but I wanted to get this out while I just while it was on my mind. So we know that anytime we hit this endpoint, we're gonna get this response back. Hello from Lambda here. Okay. All right. So we have that done. Let's just move on here. So we have two resources that spun up: the API gateway and the Lambda. And I'll just kind of even go a little bit deeper into this real quick to kind of show you why that's even working. So the main thing is this right here called the integration request. So this integration request, this basically allows API gateway just to send the payload to AWS Lambda, and then Lambda can do all the processing for it. I just find this to be the most convenient way to actually work with API gateway and Lambda. You could definitely do a lot of like uh, I guess processing on the API gateway side. Like for example, you can so you can define how the payload is to be expected on the API gateway level. Um, but I just find it's just easier just to just more efficient just to work with API, excuse me, Lambda. But by default, the integration is automatically forwarding the requests to the Lambda backend, and that's what this Lambda proxy integration is doing right here. Request will be proxy to Lambda with request details in the event of your handler function, which is this right here. This is this right here. I may be going too fast, but this is kind of it's already kind of wired this up for us. I remember back in the day we used to do this, it's just manually, but it's just a great service that the speeds of development. So that's a good thing. Um, all right, so we got all that pretty much well established. So now let's go ahead and let's see. Let's kind of go down the line. All right, so we don't need to do amplify pool. So this is almost like some of this is almost like Git. If you're familiar with Git, so you can actually have changes that actually are actually. Let's try this. So let's just make a change. Let's make a change in the back end, and we can see it pull down in on this end as well. So let's go to AWS Lambda, and let's just say, "Hello, this is Elliot. Elliot, this is Elliot from Lambda." Okay, we'll save that. I guess we can deploy it. Deploying it is means saving. All right, so we don't have that. We don't have that on the back end here, but we will once we run AWS pool. So AWS pool. Okay, the app ID. I think it's gonna be. Let's see here. Let's see what these are. So I know that the environment name is gonna be dev. So let me just. That's dev. I think the app ID. The app ID should just be. Uh, the app ID should be Amplify demo. So let me just that should be it. Let's just see here. So let's pull down those changes. Amplify pull. So let's take a look here at this lambda function that we just updated. So that's what we're trying to verify with this command, amplify pull. Okay, the ID mismatch. Okay, I'm sorry. So the ID is right here. So here's the ID. Small mistake, but that's why we're creating a video, so we can just get all this out of the way. So again, what I'm showing you is just the basic commands needed to actually work with AWS Amplify. So here we go. So again, we're pulling down those changes that I just made. There we go. So see, the function was updated. See, I updated the function in the cloud. Over here, I updated it. I said, hello, this is Elliot from Lambda, and I deployed it. So this is already a change. So if I go ahead and hit guess here, it's going to go ahead and give us a change. Let's see. Pull back in environment from dev. Okay, well. Update the function. Okay, let's see something here. Let me try that again. Okay. Well, I may need to look at that one again. But we definitely made that change here in Lambda. I will definitely look at that one. But this command, it's going to be pulling the backend from the cloud here. So that's how the command's supposed to work here. So let's just go move forward here. Let's see here. All right, Amplify Publish. So Amplify Publish. We're gonna get into this once we actually have a front end. But before we do Amplify Publish, I just think we probably need to do the Amplify Hosting Add, because the hosting add, this allows us to actually have that front end application to be served through a domain, through the AWS Amplify domain. So let's actually take a look at this one first. So AWS Amplify Hosting Add. Let's take a look at that first. Okay, so hosting with Amplify Console. Let's just go ahead and do this first. So once we do this, hosting. It's also going to set up a continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline, which is what this is saying. Um, so we'll do a, Git based deployment. So I set up a, small repo that actually has all this code here, and that's going to be what allows us to configure the hosting. So right now in the Amplify console, we don't have hosting set up. Hosting is not set up yet, okay? But we will set it up right now, okay? Okay, so please hit enter once you connect your repository. So that's the main thing. We have to connect our repository. Okay, so I need to see the permissions here. All right, so this is like a web application that we need to configure in our repository. All right, so I need to select the repositories that I want. I think I just called this um, Amplify demo. And it's right here. I call it Amplify demo. So Amplify has access to right now it's just three demos, which I'm going to be making a course out of this one. But right here, this Amplify demo. So that's how it's going to be able to also set up to configure the continuous integration and continuous deployment. Um, and the repository access, we only want to, okay, we only want Amplify to have access to these three. So looks like we're good here. So GitHub, let's connect the branch. So we gave it the permissions for Amplify to use. So now we have the Amplify demo, which is the repo that I want to use here. So that means whenever we do go, so actually, we're still going to revisit that change that I made with on API Gateway. We'll still do that, but we'll do it after we actually have the repo connected. So I don't want to lose sight of that either. But so we're just gonna so right now again what we're just doing is we're connecting the repo that we're committing to with the changes that we make in this application. We are configuring that to Amplify, so Amplify is able to basically build and serve this application and host it, um, and also configures continuous integration and continuous delivery. Uh, as you know, we make changes to our application as well. So it does a lot of there's a lot of lifting that it does. So it's very powerful, and it saves you a lot of work. So again, we're just configuring the branch here to be used. All right, so build settings. So the backend environment. So we have this backend environment. That's what we've already been building. That's the API gateway and Lambda. That's an environment. Select the backend. So this is the front end. Enable full stack continuous deployment. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Select an existing service role. Okay. Let's just get this role for now. So this also uh, Amplify also uses a amplify.yaml that you need to place in your base directory. We'll probably get into that a little bit later, but these are just instructions that for the build. Um, that's all they are. So that this is basically what's going to happen. So once Amplify um, deploys, it deploys this application by first running a build of this application. So this is a right here is an app. This is like a small this React application. This is a basic one with create React app. So it's nothing major, but it's still going to be because this code is associated with this repo. It's going to be able to build this application and then deploy it in the Amplify apps domain. Um, but this YAML, the amplify.yaml are the instructions for building out your application basically. So we're going to save and deploy this. Okay, so right now it's doing what I was just saying. It's just going to be building. It's provisioning first, so it's getting all that code from GitHub, and then it's going to be building it out. So once this does build on out, we're just going to see like a standard React application, very basic, but that's what it's going to be. Um, and I'll even show you. Go back here. So this does take a minute to finish. Shouldn't take too long because we don't really have that much of a application going there. It's just the vanilla application, stock application. Okay, I hope we don't have too much errors. Okay, so again, we're just configuring that Amplify, excuse me, add hosting. Uh, this particular uh, command, which is one of the more powerful ones that allows us to configure the GitHub application, to configure the GitHub repo, at large, and also set up continuous integration, and it allows us to deploy the application. Uh, once there's commits to the repo. All right, so let's take a look here. This does take a moment, but I just want you to see. Okay, so it's literally building out the application, and it's going to deploy it here in a minute. And this is the URL we're going to use to access the repo. Excuse me, access the application as well. Okay. All right. So this is that. This gives us the. So it even gives us a little bit more metadata. So this is going to be the REST API that we used earlier to verify that the API gateway and Lambda was working correctly. Okay, so everything is good to go. So if we hit this, we're just gonna get a standard React app, which is okay. Again, this is what that's what this is here. Um, in the future video, I'm gonna be going more in depth with the actual application, but right now it's just it's Sunday morning. I just want to get something out real quick that kind of comprehensively shows you all the commands that we would be using in such a video. So we have that. So let me go ahead and let me see here. Okay, so we have this get ignore here. All right, so the get ignore, it does. Okay, so let me actually go through and do it this way. Let me go through and let me make a change on that application or on that function on this side, and I'll do an amplify push because that's going to be like the last stage of this demo here. Let me go here. Yep. So that's the last stage. So I just want to make this complete. Let me go ahead and just show you that the amplify push does work. So I mean, this one should actually have. It did give us a lot of indication that it did work. So I had to revisit that one. But let me see here. So we done this here. Okay, so again, it's giving us the same information we just got here from the console. So if we were to visit this URL, this is the same one we just got. So you don't really need to go to the console to get this information. But but sometimes yeah, just kind of seeing how it works the first time using the console is a little advantageous. Um, so yeah, actually, I'm just gonna stop the video right now. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, I just want to give an overview of just the commands needed to actually just set up AWS Amplify. And again, I will be creating another video that has a real application that we're going to build from start to finish. But I also want to get these just the basic commands out of the way. If you have any questions or any comments, or you just have any recommendations or feedback, I would love to hear those. Please put those in the videos. Please subscribe to the Cloud Shepherd, and really appreciate your support. And thank you, and have a great day.